Panezikos, delicious rolls made the way my Sephardic Turkish grandmothers used to make them. They're golden, easy to make, made by hand, and just absolutely delicious.
Sally, that girl, in the kitchen. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sally, that girl, in the kitchen. In today's episode, I'm going to teach you how to make panezikos. What are panezikos, you may ask? Well, panesicos are beautiful rolls of bread. But what's special about these rolls is the fact that I'm going to be making them the way my Sephardic Turkish grandmothers would have made them. So you may know that the Sephardic Turkish were amazing at making all things dough-based. Think about it. They made bizcochos, porrecas, bulemas, bollos, all kinds of things with different types of dough. Tapadas, of course, which I just recently featured another version of. All of these are dough-based. But what you may not know is that they also used to make these amazing little rolls that go great with everything. So easy to put together and super yummy. So I'm super excited to teach you how to make these. Yeah, I know it's a lot of supers, but it's true. I am super excited to teach you how to make these. So let's not wait another second and let's get started.
For today's recipe, you will need 5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 3/4 cups of water, 2 1/4 teaspoons of active dry yeast, 5 teaspoons of sugar plus 1 more teaspoon separate, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil plus another 1/2 teaspoon separate, 1 large egg and 1 more egg for an egg wash. You will also need some parchment paper, a serving fork, some measuring spoons, some dry measuring cups, a wet measuring cup, 2 small bowls and 2 forks, a pastry brush, and a large bowl with either a lid, or you can use a dough cover, or you can use plastic wrap. And you'll also need some oven mitts, 2 large baking sheets, as we will be making 30 panezikos, so we're going to need room for about 15 panezikos per tray. And you'll also need some cooling racks, either some plastic wrap or a dough cover, and you'll need either a dough scraper or a knife. So now that we have all of our ingredients and tools together, let's get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do is measure out your 1 3/4 cups of water, and then you're going to pop that in the microwave for about a minute or so to get it warm. You want it lukewarm, not super hot. Then you're going to bring that over, and to it you're going to add 2 1/4 teaspoons of active dry yeast, and then you're going to add that 1 teaspoon of sugar that I said to keep separate. That is to feed our yeast and to help it activate. So what I like to do is I just give it a gentle stir just to make sure that the yeast is not floating at the top, and to break down any little clumps. Just gently give it a little stir. And then what you're going to do is you're going to let it sit on your counter for 5 minutes to let that yeast activate. So while that's activating, in a large bowl, you're going to add 5 cups of all-purpose flour, and I just use the back of my measuring cup to make a little well in the center. Then we're going to add our 5 teaspoons of sugar on the outer edge of the bowl. Then we do the same with 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Just pour that right on the outer edge. So once that's in, then we're going to just move that aside for a second. We're going to bring over our now active yeast, and then we're going to grab 1 large egg, and we're going to beat it well. And then we're going to add that egg right into our wet ingredients. And then right into that, we're also going to add 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. And then what I like to do is just grab a fork and just gently give that a little bit of a stir, just to kind of incorporate the ingredients a bit. And then I bring over my bowl with my dry ingredients, and then I just pour this mixture right into that well that I created in the center. And then once all of that is in, Then I grab my trusty fork. I love using, of course, a serving fork when making most of my doughs because that's the way my grandmother used to do it. And so that's the way my mom does it. And that's the way I do it too. So my trusty fork gets a lot of action in my kitchen. And so I grab my fork, and as you see, I'm just kind of stirring all of the ingredients together. I just scrape down the sides of the bowl, and I just want to make sure to form somewhat of a shaggy dough at first. And what I'm doing is I'm using my fork to just kind of combine the ingredients, scrape everything off. But then once I've brought them somewhat together and the dough is a bit shaggy, then I clean off my fork and I switch to using my hands, because the moisture in the dough, it may appear dry at first, but if you press it down, the moisture within the dough will just pick up all of the flour in the bowl. And then I just turn it and I use the dough itself to just scrape off everything from the inside of the bowl. And then I switch to my counter, which is very clean, and I knead this dough. So what we're looking to form is a nice, firm, and smooth ball of dough. And you'll notice that the dough is not even sticking. It is really amazing to work with. So don't be tempted to add any extra flour or anything else to it, because if you just work it gently on your counter, I recommend 10 minutes of kneading. I know it's a bit of an arm workout, but you will be so satisfied with the results. Of course, you can use an electric appliance. You can use a dough hook, and then you'd likely have to knead this for about 5 or 6 minutes if you're using a machine. But there's nothing like connecting with the dough the way my grandmothers used to make it, completely by hand. And it's just forming this gorgeous, incredibly beautiful, firm and smooth ball of dough. So now you're just going to add a half a teaspoon of vegetable oil to this dough right back in your bowl. And then you're just going to make sure to coat the dough all around. And then you're going to cover the bowl with either a cover, plastic wrap, or a dough cover. And then we're going to put this in a draft-free spot and set a 60-minute timer. If you're using your oven turned off, I do recommend you set a little note out so that everyone knows not to turn your oven on while your dough is in there rising, but any draft-free corner of your kitchen will do. So now, while that is rising, I'm going to prepare my 2 baking trays, and all I'm going to do is line these sheets with parchment paper to have them ready for when I form my panezikos. And then after an hour where I've allowed my dough to rise, I'm going to bring it out. I'm going to uncover it. It's looking absolutely beautiful. And then this is always my favorite part. I'm going to punch my dough down to release the gases that have formed as my dough was rising. And then I'm just going to gently tip my bowl over and use my fingertips to release this dough from the bowl and then bring it back onto my clean counter. So once the dough is back on my counter, what I like to do is very gently, I kind of shape it almost into an oval, into like an oblong shape. And then what I'm doing is I'm going to divide my dough into 3 sections. So I'm using a dough scraper, but a knife would work just as well. And then all I'm doing is I'm separating this dough into 3 sections. So I am looking to make 30 panezikos. So what I'm doing is I'm going to work on one section first, and I'm going to put some plastic wrap over the other 2 so that the dough doesn't dry out. And from each of these 3 sections, I will be making 10 panezikos. So once again, I rolled it very gently into that same shape. And then this time, I'm going to divide my dough into 5 parts. And then, of course, each of those 5 parts will be split into 2 so that we make 10 rolls. So, of course, this is just a suggestion. You can portion this into 10 pieces however you prefer. You can weigh your dough and portion it out that way. But the truth is, I'm doing it the way my grandmothers used to do it. We just eyeball it. We roughly make 5 sections, and then from each of those 5 sections, we cut them in half, and we make 10. These don't have to be exact, and they're just really forgiving when they rise. They'll look absolutely beautiful. You just want to be gentle and not overwork the dough. So now from my 5, I'm going to make 10. So I took 1, I split it in half, and then I'm just going to gently roll it between the palms of my hands, very gently. I'm not applying hardly any pressure, just very gently to kind of make it into a rough circular shape. And then I'm placing them right on my prepared tray, right on that parchment. And then, of course, what I'm doing is I'm making 10. So I'm gonna just go ahead and cut these all in half for good measure so that I make sure that I have 10 rolls out of this one piece of dough. And then, of course, I'm going to repeat the process with the other 2 pieces of dough, and I will eventually end up with 30 rolls. So as you see, I'm just one by one placing them in my hand, not overworking them at all, and then just rolling them between my 2 hands to form a ball. Now I'm going to repeat the same thing with the second piece of dough. Just like before, I'm going to divide my dough up into 5, and then I'm going to take each of those sections, cut it in half, and that way I'll end up with 10 pieces of dough. And then once I have my 10 pieces, just like before, roll each piece between my hands very gently, and then just continue to add them right onto my trays. As I said earlier in the video, we're going to end up with 30 rolls because each of these 3 sections will make 10 rolls. So that's why I prepared 2 trays so that I can have 15 on one and 15 on the other. Now, once I have my first tray full, then what I like to do is cover that tray with some plastic wrap because I don't want my rolls drying out while I continue to shape the rest of them. So there we have 1 tray with 15 rolls, and then you just continue the process with the rest of your dough until, of course, you make another 15 rolls, and then you're going to put those on your second tray, and you'll end up with 2 beautiful trays of rolls. I mean, could this be any easier? I'm literally just gently rolling the dough in my hands, and I formed the cutest little bread rolls. They're just adorable, and they will grow a touch in the oven. So now I'm going to cover these. I'm going to let them sit on my counter for another 30 minutes, either with plastic wrap gently or with your dough cover. And then when I have about 20 minutes left on that timer, I preheat my oven to 375 degrees. And then when that timer is almost up and I have maybe about 2 or 3 minutes left, I grab 1 large egg and then I crack it into a bowl, and then I beat it well with a fork, because what I'm going to do is give all of these beautiful rolls an egg wash. So I gently remove whatever I'm using to cover my rolls very gently. And then I'm going to come over with my pastry brush and I'm going to give all of these beautiful rolls an egg wash. Look at how beautiful they look, and they're going to get even more beautiful when they rise with the heat of the oven. So all you want to do is gently give them an egg wash. I'm using a whole egg. I did not dilute it with any water. And I'm just making sure to get the entire top surface and the sides of each of these beautiful panezikos. And then they'll be ready. And then we can pop them into the oven. And I set a 10-minute timer because after 10 minutes, I like to change the position of the tray and then add another 10-minute timer. In other words, the top tray to the bottom tray goes to the top, 10 more minutes of baking time, making a total of 20 minutes for baking. And then after that time is up, we're gonna pull out our panezikos, and look at how beautiful they're looking. They're golden and just absolutely gorgeous. These breads are perfect. They're so delicious, and they just have a little bit of egg in them, a little bit of sugar in them. So they're not sweet the way challah would be. They're just perfect. They are really, really great. And of course, they're dairy-free, so they go great with absolutely everything. You can make little sandwiches. You can use this for everything. So using a spatula, I recommend a spatula. I don't think I mentioned that in the tools you might need, but I recommend using a spatula because they're still quite hot. I like to remove these panezikos from the hot trays and then place them onto cooling racks to allow them to cool. So that one you see kind of kissed the one next to it. So I just used my spatula and then just split them. So when that happens, that's totally fine. Just gently use your spatula to separate any that may have kissed when rising in the oven. And look at how beautiful these look. The smell of fresh bread. My grandmothers really knew what they were doing. This is easy, simple ingredients that you have in your pantry, and you can make your own fresh bread in no time. These are perfect. Just throw these on a beautiful platter to serve them, or throw them in a little basket that you line with a pretty napkin, and you have some beautiful little rolls for dinner, for lunch, for breakfast. They're great with everything. A little bit of jam, a little bit of butter, and as I said, you can even make little sandwiches out of these. They're non-dairy, so you can use these for burgers. You can use these for cold cuts. They are fantastic. So, of course, I love to admire my work once I'm done, because if you love to cook and you love to bake and you love to make things homemade that will make others really happy and just really enjoy what's been made for them with love, you love to take a moment to just take in your results, or at least I do. I absolutely love admiring my work once it's done, because look at how beautiful. We always eat with our eyes first, and does that not look inviting? So they're still warm, and I'm super excited to try one of these. I'm just gonna go with a little bit of butter, but I'm telling you, anything would be good on these rolls. They're perfect. Look at that beautiful golden top, and even the bottom develops this beautiful color. They're nice and spongy. They're just absolutely the perfect consistency. So I'm going to just give this a little pat of butter, and I'm going to try this. Let's break into one. Wow, look at how beautiful. The texture of this bread is so perfect and just perfectly spongy and beautiful. Look at that inside, those air pockets that have formed, and it just springs right back. It's just an incredibly delicious roll. I'm telling you, my grandmothers, they really knew what they were doing. So I'm gonna have a little bite of this one with a little bit of butter. I can't wait. I'm literally salivating. So crazy delicious. Wow. Oh my, so good. Yummy, fresh bread that you made yourself by hand. No heavy equipment needed. Super easy to put together. And the result is perfect. I have to have another piece of this because it's still warm and it's just absolutely yummy, but they're great warm. They're perfect room temperature. And if you have a ton of them, you can even pop them in the fridge and then just warm them a little bit in the toaster oven when you're ready to have one. These even freeze well. They're just absolutely the perfect little bread. So good. Homemade, just like my abuelas would make. Absolutely delicious with whatever you put on them, and even alone. Tasty, perfect, delicious panezikos.
So how super yummy do these guys look? Yes, super seems to be the word of the day. They are super yummy, super easy to put together, and really just great. You thought I was going to say super, didn't you? Anyway, I'm feeling silly today, but it's good. Getting in the kitchen and making videos for you guys gets me super excited. And yes, this recipe is just one that I love. You're gonna see it's great with everything. You can eat it alone, warm, room temperature, with a little butter, with a little olive oil, with herbs, with anything you can think of. And of course, it's great for little sandwiches. It's just a great overall bread, and it's really easy to put together. So I'm telling you, my Sephardic grandmothers knew what they were doing. Trust me. No, better yet, don't trust me. You're gonna have to try to make this recipe yourself. And of course, if you've enjoyed today's recipe, don't forget to like it, to write a sweet comment, to share it with your friends, and of course to share my channel with your friends. I produce these videos for you week after week, and of course you can see under my video and playlist tab how many of them I've put up. I've been doing this for about 2 years now, week after week. There's constantly new content going up. So thank you so much for sharing my channel with your friends. It really helps me grow my channel, so thank you. If you discover my channel and you enjoy it, or you've been watching for a long time and have been enjoying it, please share my channel with your friends. I really enjoy when you do that, so thank you. I appreciate it. And of course, if you're not already subscribed to Sally That Girl in the Kitchen here on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and to touch that little notification bell so that you get notified when I put up a new recipe, which I do all of the time. And of course, if you're not following me on social media, you can find me as Sally That Girl in the Kitchen on Facebook, Instagram, and on Pinterest. And of course, you can also find me as Sally That Girl FL on Twitter, Snapchat, and on TikTok. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Sally That Girl in the Kitchen.